Maverick sat at the long table on the 11th floor and stared at the diagram on the screen until the lines stopped meaning anything. The room was warm. Somebody's coffee had gone cold an hour ago. Outside the window, a slow gray rain was washing the side of the building, and inside, 8 people were waiting for him to speak. He had been the senior architect at Briarwood Systems for 13 years. Before that, a lead developer. Before that, a junior who corrected his own teachers. People said he had a gift. He never argued with the word. He believed it so completely, he stopped noticing the belief. People asked, Maverick answered. That was the arrangement. Well, he said finally, the plan is sound. We just need more hours on it. Nobody answered. Nobody nodded. A woman near the door, Helen, the head of product, did that small thing with her mouth she only did when she was about to disagree, but had decided not to. Maverick saw it. He pretended he didn't. The meeting ended. People stood up too quickly. He stayed in his chair, telling himself it was because he wanted to review the numbers one more time. The truth was simpler. He didn't want to walk out beside anyone. That evening, his wife, Margot, asked how the day had gone, and he said fine, and she let it go. Because they had learned, over 20 years of marriage, where the soft places in each other were. By the next morning, the project was officially behind. The delay had already cost them one pilot client. Joel, the engineering director, did what Joel always did when something slipped. He scheduled a postmortem. Blameless, he called it. And mostly meant it. The whole team in one room, the timeline of what had gone wrong up on the screen, no names attached to the bad parts. Priya got the bridge adjacent section because she had spent the week collecting the failed traces. She did not know the bridge better than anyone else. She simply had the freshest evidence. There was a part of the system everyone called the bridge. It was old, older than half the people in the room. Years ago, it had been the clever answer to a problem the company no longer had, and somewhere along the way, it had stopped being a solution and become a thing you did not touch. New features were built around it, never through it. When something near it broke, the ticket quietly found its way to Maverick, because Maverick was the one people called when the bridge failed at 6:10 p.m. and no one wanted to explain it to a client. He liked that, though he had never once said so out loud. Priya had joined Briarwood 8 months earlier. She wore the same gray hoodie most days. She apologized too much in meetings. She had a habit of saying, "I might be wrong, but," before sentences that turned out to be very, very right. She walked the room through her slice slowly, drawing on the whiteboard with the back of a marker because she had lost the cap. Then she stopped and looked at her notes. "Can I ask something that's probably dumb?" she said. "Why do we still send everything through the bridge? I might be wrong, but the reason we built it this way, is that still true? Because the thing it was supposed to protect us from, I don't think we even do that anymore." Maverick opened his mouth. "Because billing reconciliation still depends on it," he said, faster than he meant to. Priya looked down at her notes. "I thought most of that path was moved off the bridge 2 years ago." The room went quiet. Maverick looked back at the diagram. The sentence sounded familiar in his mouth, and that scared him more than being wrong. But suddenly it felt like something he had carried forward without checking. He realized he had been repeating an old answer because nobody had made him prove it lately. He could feel the room waiting for him to do the thing he always did, to explain smoothly why the question wasn't really a question. This time, the explanation did not arrive. Priya didn't smile. She didn't make a face. She wrote something in a cheap notebook with a bent corner and moved on to the next thing. Later, he would wonder why none of the others had ever asked her question. They were not stupid. Some of them were very good. But he had spent years answering before people finished their sentences, fast and certain, and people learn what a room rewards. They had learned that bringing a half-formed thought to Maverick was a way to feel slow, so over time they had stopped bringing them. Priya hadn't learned it yet. She was too new to know that the bridge was not to be questioned, so she had questioned it. At the end of the postmortem, Joel said the obvious thing out loud. "Maverick, you and Priya should take a proper pass at the bridge together. Fresh eyes, old hands." It was not a punishment. It only felt like one to Maverick, and he was careful not to let that show. He went back to his office, closed the door, and sat very still for a long time. He thought about the patio he had wanted to build behind his house, and the cabin by the lake they kept renting, and the photograph of his daughter on the shelf. He didn't cry. He just felt, in a place he could not point to, that a small door he had kept locked for years had been pushed open, and there was a draft now, and he did not know how to close it again. The working session was supposed to take an hour. It took barely 20 minutes. Priya kept asking questions Maverick had stopped asking himself a long time ago. He answered the first few from memory, confident, fast. Then she asked, "When was the last time anyone ran the bridge without the workaround sitting in front of it?" It had been 6 years, maybe 7. Maverick felt a sudden, suffocating tightness in his chest. The old reflex urged him to bluff, but he couldn't. He forced a neutral expression and leaned back. "That's a good question," he said smoothly. "I'll have to dig through the commit history from 6 years ago to check the exact context. Let's pause here for today while I review the old architecture." He knew perfectly well there was no useful documentation left, but it bought him time. Priya nodded, but this time she didn't write anything down. Priya shut the notebook. Not hard. That was worse. She had understood the lesson. A week later, he tried to change something, and it went badly. It was an ordinary design meeting. A younger engineer named Theo proposed a fix that was, in Maverick's view, almost certainly wrong. The old reflex came up his throat like heat. The correction was already there. He could almost hear himself saying it. Then he bit it back and hated how childish that felt. He swallowed it. Instead, he tried the thing he had been telling himself he would try. He asked questions. A lot of them. It did not go well. He asked the questions in the wrong voice. Everyone could hear the answer hiding behind them. The meeting ran 20 minutes over. Theo got defensive, certain he was being quizzed in front of everyone. Afterward, Helen caught him in the hall and asked kindly if everything was all right. He said it was. He went back to his office feeling like a man who had tried to speak a language he didn't have and been politely understood by no one. The sleeplessness came next. He started waking at 4:50, 6 minutes before the alarm, with his jaw tight and no clear reason for it. He'd lie in the dark and run his thumb along the seam of the comforter, listening to Margot breathe, trying to remember what he had been so sure of the day before. He didn't tell her. He told her other things. He told her he was tired. He told her he was thinking about getting a different chair. It lasted until the morning she sat up in the dark beside him and said, "You've been getting up at 4:50 for 3 weeks, Maverick. I've been counting. We can't keep calling it fine. I'm not asking you to fix it tonight. I'm asking you to stop telling me it isn't happening." So he told her. Not all of it cleanly, he didn't have the words yet, but the shape of it. That he had built something on being right, and it had started going out of date, and he couldn't find the part of himself that used to be sure. She didn't try to talk him out of it. She just listened, which was harder. And at the end, she said, "You used to tell the kids the smartest thing your dad ever did was ask questions in that shop. You remember saying that?" He did remember. He had forgotten that he remembered. That Saturday, he went out to the garage on purpose. Not for a wrench. He went looking for the box. It had sat under the workbench for 11 years. His father's things from the old shop. He pulled it out into the light and went through it slowly. Under a stack of invoices was a small, worn notebook, the same cheap kind Priya carried. Most of the pages were dates and figures, but on the inside of the back cover, in his father's blocky handwriting, in pencil gone soft and gray, was a single sentence. "Are you listening, or just waiting to answer?" Maverick stared at the graphite letters. It wasn't about wrenches or engines. It was the exact thing his father used to say in the shop when a younger, impatient Maverick would interrupt a customer. Customers trusted his father not because he had all the answers immediately, but because he gave them the silence they needed to explain the actual problem. Maverick sat down on the cold cement floor. The quiet arrogance he hadn't noticed building for 13 years suddenly felt very heavy. After a while, Margot came out. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just sat down beside him on the cement, leaned against his shoulder, and they sat there until the garage went blue with evening. Neither of them tried to make the moment bigger than it was. He didn't invent a perfect system. There were no 3 magic questions to save him. There was just a forced, uncomfortable pause he started inserting into his own conversations whenever he caught himself reaching for an answer he hadn't actually earned. It didn't work immediately, but he kept forcing the pause. The meeting where it finally clicked, he wasn't even trying hard. Theo proposed a fix, and Maverick felt the old reflex burn in his throat. The correction was fully formed. He swallowed it, forced a 3-second silence, and asked simply, "How does that hold up if the same request comes in twice?" Theo stopped. He looked at his screen. He scrolled. "Oh," he said slowly. "Yeah, that's bad." It wasn't a perfect fix, but Theo had found it himself, and he sat up a little straighter for the rest of the hour. It spread slower than Maverick wanted, and faster than he'd feared. The room got braver by degrees. Priya kept showing up with the same gray hoodie, the same cheap notebook, and the same dangerous habit of asking the question everyone else had learned to swallow. One afternoon, she came into his office and closed the door. She had a plan for the bridge. Not a question this time. A plan. And a bold one. Rip it out. All of it. A year earlier, he would have killed the idea in the first 5 minutes. This time, he kept his mouth shut longer than felt natural. He listened all the way to the end. Her plan was better than anything he would have come up with. But it might also take the company down some Tuesday in late March. She had no way of knowing that, and for the first time, he realized he didn't know for sure either. I don't know, he said. Part of this is the best idea anyone's had about the bridge in years. But there's an old billing path tied to this, and I'm honestly not sure if it's still active. Let's figure it out together. They did. What they ended up with was better than her plan. It was much better than his. Neither of them could have reached it alone, and they both knew it. And that was the part he found he liked most. He had not become a different man overnight. He had simply stopped trying to be the man with the answer and started trying to be the man with the better question. That night, Maverick got home after Margot was already in bed. He stood by the sink and drank a glass of water in the half-dark. He thought about how strange it was that the question which had cost him so much had been so simple. 8 words on the inside of a back cover. Are you listening, or just waiting to answer? He rinsed the glass and set it upside down on the towel. Then he went up the stairs without turning on the hallway light, because by then, he knew the way. If you are somewhere in the middle of your own career, or your own relationship, or your own life, and you have started to feel that the certainties you used to lean on are quietly going out of date, this story is for you, not as a lecture. This is for the person who keeps saying, fine, because explaining the truth would take too long. Changing his mind did not feel brave. It felt irritating, slow, and a little humiliating. It looks like a glass turned upside down on a kitchen towel at night, and a man who has finally found the way home in the dark.